And we're back after our short commercial break of no commercial, just went off.
Now we're all set
Now we're
for the next
here.
part.
Yay! Okay, so I'm so excited. Um, I have been excited for Loki since WandaVision. So it was a long wait, and I was really afraid that I was hyping myself up too much. That it was going to be terrible for how much I was hyping myself up. But I was not disappointed. So I liked it.
I thought it was really interesting. The one part I thought was really kind of amusing and interesting in a way was that little welcome video
Yes.
to the Time Authority.
Miss Minutes.
Yes, that was just really funny.
Yes. She is very adorable and cute. And also will just like destroy you.
Right.
So,
And the way they kept pulling back in the time loop thing.
yes.
By the way, if you haven't seen it, this will be filled
spoilers.
with spoilers.
Yeah. Lots of spoilers for episode 1. Good catch there, Katiana. If you have not seen Loki episode 1, this is spoilers. Go watch it. It's good. All right, so I've watched it 3 times now. And
okay.
The third time I paused it a whole bunch and went back and forth to look at stuff. And I've also listened to the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast and the new Rockstars Loki episode 1 details you missed thing. So, I have a lot of information from people who know a lot about the comics, and that is all the knowledge I have because I don't have any actual knowledge about Loki and comics. So, all of my assumptions are going off of those 2 things. So we start in New York in 2012 when Loki gets a Tesseract, which is the Space Stone, back. And this is from one of the Avengers movies. Endgame? Is it Endgame? I do not like the Avenger movies at all.
I think it's Endgame.
Yeah, it's gotta be. So it's when Tony Stark goes back to get the Tesseract and messes it up. So technically we should know all of that happened. That happened in the other movies. We then cut to the Gobi Desert in 2012, I'm assuming, because I don't think it's the Space Stone, so he can move through space and not time. So it'd still be 2012. And there is a bug on the screen, which I looked up, is the caterpillar hunter beetle. I don't know if that matters. But it is a hunter, and there are hunters after Loki. Okay, so running through the desert. And Loki sand crash scene like Iron Man 1. I'll call back to Iron Man 1. Loki jumps. So I thought this was funny. So Loki sees the natives who are looking at him, and he quickly runs up and jumps on a little rock to be slightly higher than them. To be look at me, I'm your god, I fell from the sky. But they don't understand him. I don't know why he doesn't talk in their language. I imagine Loki knows all of the languages, but maybe not. I don't know. That's something I don't know.
If he's a god, he should know all the languages, shouldn't he?
Yeah, especially because he wants to be the ruler of Midgard, which Midgard's an entire planet and just not the United States and other English speaking countries. So you would think that he would need to know all the languages of Earth, which right. I imagine he does. So I don't know why he wouldn't speak their language. Anyways, the TVA shows up as he's trying to talk to these people to grab his Tesseract. The TVA says Loki is being arrested for crimes against the sacred timeline. And they use stun baton thingies to subdue him. So this is the first time we see there's the lead lady, Hunter B-15, has a purple stun baton. and the guys behind her have orange. And we'll later see that there's a difference. So the Agent B-15 or Hunter B-15 smacks him with the purple one, which slows him down. And he has a funny fall to the ground. The TVA Hunter Minutemen. So there's different words for them. So I think they come with one hunter, and then the other people who follow them are the Minutemen. Reset the timeline with a device that starts orange and turns purple. Now this is all stuff I'm trying to figure out, because they use these words and I think they probably mean different things. So resetting the timeline, I think, is different than pruning the timeline, because they use pruning too.
Yeah.
Have I lost you yet?
No, I get it.
Okay, because it's like complicated. So Loki is taken to a check-in area that has a variant scroll. So the scrolls, we actually read about the scrolls in one of the Fantastic Fours, right? But they're also from Marvel. What was that? I can't remember the name of the Marvel movie. It wasn't just called Marvel. What's her name? I don't know. That was also not a good movie. I didn't like it. Anyways.
Oh, Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Thank you. Gosh, I'm not thinking well tonight. So there's a scroll, and then there's a kid. Well, he's like an adult kid who said his dad works for Goldman Sachs. So those guys are in the check-in. And I want to say, so I was watching this really slowly, and at time marker 5 minutes and 41 seconds, you can see that Agent B-15 has a bunch of like tally marks on her helmet. And it probably is meaningless, but I thought that was an interesting detail that I didn't see till the third watch through. So I wonder what she's tallying on her helmet. Like how many times she's traveled in the sacred timeline, or how many times she's
caught somebody.
Killed somebody. Yeah.
Caught somebody.
There's quite a few. There's quite a few tally marks. So Loki, for a gratuitous nudity scene, is stripped naked by a robot. And put into a jumpsuit, and he keeps falling through these areas, and if you remember from Ragnarok, Doctor Strange had him falling through like eternity for a while before Thor wanted him back. So I think that's like specifically hell for Loki, is falling forever. And so once he gets stripped naked, he gets put into a jumpsuit, and then the next thing he falls through is a stack of papers of everything he has ever said, and he has to sign it. And everybody has made the comment that like he's supposed to be thousands of years old, that his stack of papers of everything he ever said, being a very talkative god of mischief, that stack of papers should be way bigger. He's probably said way more than that over his life.
Well, yeah, when I saw that, I actually my thought is that the printout was not like one sentence or one paragraph. It's like it had multiple word, not multiple.
Yeah. I think it would still be bigger. He talks a lot. He monologues a lot. Over 1,000 years, or however old he's supposed to be. So, and there's also a cat with the guy who does the word signing. And people have also mentioned this, that it's probably a flurkin. And I think it's gotta be a flurkin, because I looked it up, and flurkins have a thing where they can have different balls of space-time within them. And so for a pet at a time variance authority, of course they're going to have a flurkin that has like different time spaces living inside of it. So I think it's totally a flurkin. And then he has to go through a gateway. It says gateway on the side of the thing. But I couldn't read any of the other words to get his temporal aura scanned, which It has like, it looks like it has horns before it like fades away to just like the blues and reds. He is then taken to a line with the Goldman Sachs kid and has to take a ticket before getting an info dump by Miss Minutes. So this is all of our background for what the TVA is. And from what I've been hearing, the TVA is a lot different in the comic books. So some people think this might not be the TVA, since it's not exactly like the comic books, and maybe some group that's pretending to be the TVA. I don't know. But Miss Minutes. Oh, did you have something to say?
Well, they maybe have modified it for television purposes.
Definitely. It definitely could be. Yeah. But this is really where we get all of our info for what's going on and also thoughts about what's happening. So Miss Minutes specifically states that the Timekeepers brought peace by reorganizing the multiverse into a single timeline. And there's also a direct reference to Nexus events, which there was a Nexus event reference in WandaVision as well. And specifically said that will lead to madness and another multiversal war, which the next Doctor Strange movie is called Multiverse of Madness. Oh. So this is like directly leading into that movie, and that movie doesn't come out until March of next year. So that sucks.
Okay.
So yeah. And let's see. So the rich kid gets up and he doesn't have a ticket, so he gets orange stun batoned and gets vaporized. He's just gone. Well, I mean, technically we don't know what happened to him, but it looks like he's gone forever.
They used a word for that. I can't remember what it was when they just vaporize them.
Yeah, so they use prune, but they also use reset. And I really think they're two different things. I don't think they're interchangeable. So I think that guy got pruned, which means...
Pruned would mean taken off.
Yeah, he's no longer in existence. I think that's what happened. So we cut to 1549 France with Mobius. I tried to look up what was going on then, and it didn't seem like there was anything going on. A hunter and his Minutemen were taken out, and a restart charge was taken, being the 6th attack in a week, so that we know the bad guy has at least 6 charges. Having just read the first issue of Doctor Strange 1974, there is a stained glass of a devil, and in... This is specifically for this comic we read. I have no other proof or anything. But Doctor Strange in the comics, the size of his cloak look like horns. Like they go up and they're red. And his orb of Agamotto looks like the ball that's in the bottom of that stained glass painting. And so a lot of people have been saying that it's Loki is in the stained glass. And a lot of people say it's Mephisto in the stained glass. But I think it's Doctor Strange. Just because I read this comic and it looks like the orb of Agamotto and Doctor Strange with his little high collar things. So that has absolutely nothing to do with anything and is way out there of a guess.
Or it could be the previous owner of the cloak.
Yeah. Do you know the previous owner of the cloak?
No, but didn't he get in the movie, he got the cloak from the monastery that he went to in Tibet and Nepal.
Yeah, it was not his originally.
But
I think that would be a good tie-in if it was Doctor Strange, because this is all going to tie into the Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
So there's a little kid who comes in, and Mobius asks who did this, and the kid points to the stained glass person, and the teeth are blue. They have a gum called Kablooey Blueberry, and it has 9 units, the packaging says, which is the weird units for gum. I don't know. And Mobius, once it runs for sequence, period, and temporal aura. And the Minutemen say it won't get any hits. Which I get... no, I won't say anything else. I just watched the second episode. I'm trying not to say anything about that. So if this is... That comment made me think it was outside... Like, it was an object that didn't exist. If they couldn't get a sequence period from it. I don't know. It sounded like they had other objects. Like, they'd tried this before, and this bad person they're hunting had objects that didn't have a sequence or a period. So, I don't know. The red line device also uses units as a unit for variance away from the sacred timeline. And the timeline segment number, these are all the details I went back and grabbed, which probably have nothing to do with anything, is 616.432, which I don't know if you know, but the Marvel universe is 616. Did you know that? The comic book universe?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay. Yeah, so 616 is like the normal universe, and then for their like alternate realities, they have different numbers. The date, so we have the specific date that this happened, which was 12/4/1549. So I don't know if that's December 4th or if it's the other way and it's April 12th. The kid wasn't dressed very warmly. Does France get cold?
Is Loki made by... It's Disney, so they would probably use the American way of...
That's what I imagine. But if it's December in France, is it like snowing? Because that kid wasn't dressed very warmly.
Maybe not. Sometimes December doesn't snow. It doesn't start snowing until January.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the beginning of December.
Even like up in Maine, there were days that there was no snow on the ground.
Yeah. But I tried to look up both dates and I couldn't find anything for either date, so it's probably not important. But I found it. I looked at all the stuff. So Mobius is interrupted when an agent brings him Loki's file. And we get some info on Loki that mostly we all knew, except that it says his sex is listed as fluid, which means that there are male and female versions of Loki, which we know from comics, and a lot of people have assumed that the main bad person in this is going to be Lady Loki. So I think that was a hint that the villain is going to be Lady Loki. The sector says 19...
Oh, I missed that totally. I just went over my head.
Yeah. But what I've listened to, Lady Loki is actually supposed to be Thor's friend. That's a girl. Her name's like Sif or Sylph or something. The girl fighter in the Thor movies. And Loki's soul or essence is supposed to inhabit her, and that's who Lady Loki is in the comics. But it's not. I don't think it's going to be like that in the show.
I thought, didn't Loki die in the movies?
He did die. Which we saw him die in the end of this episode. Or not the end, but close to the end. It shows he gets to see himself die.
Right.
So Mobius is interrupted with the Loki file. It says he was gotten from sector 1900 to 2099, which is just not important. Obviously, he was picked up in that time period. I just thought, like, it's interesting that was a sector. Sector 1900 to 2099. Loki is taken to Time Court 37 for sequence violation 7/20/89. That is totally a date, and I don't know why it's important. But that's totally a date. The judge states that the Avengers did what they were supposed to do, and Loki's escape was the variance, because Loki tries to blame the Avengers. He tries to use his power in the court and fails and is laughed at. And told by the judge that magic does not work in the TVA. And he is sentenced to be reset. Once again, I think that's important, that he was sentenced to be reset and not pruned, because I think there's a difference. Mobius saves him by talking to the judge, and as they're walking through the TVA, Loki states that this place is a nightmare, and Mobius says, that's another department. And there's a bad guy who's nightmare, or maybe there's a set of comics that happen in like a nightmare realm or something. So I think that was also a like Easter egg for a future. I think there's another thing in the work in Marvel for that. And let's see. Loki asks Mobius how long he's been there, and Mobius responds that time passes differently here. That was also said by Ant-Man in the quantum realm. So a lot of people think that the TVA exists in the quantum realm. And
that makes sense.
Yeah. So they're like really tiny. The TVA staff were created by the Timekeepers to protect the sacred timeline. So they aren't real people. Are they robots? Or are they organic beings that the Timekeepers created? Questions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Questions.
We don't know. Mobius takes him to a time theater to show him This Is Your Life, aka clip show of the Marvel movies. So we get to see everything that we already know. He shows Agent Coulson being killed by Loki and stops there. So this is important because when they originally did the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, they said it was going to be canon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I guess they backtracked on that at some point and said that it wasn't. But I think it was like an obvious gap that like Loki's like, he ended up dead. And then Mobius didn't say anything after that. So he didn't say, yeah, he ended up dead. And he didn't say, no, he didn't end up dead. Because he's alive in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I think...
Didn't he get killed in the movies?
He did get killed in the movie. But the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show brought him back.
Oh, okay.
Saying he didn't really die. But I guess the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, it was supposed to like have an effect on the movies, and then it didn't, and now people are confused of whether it's actually part of the universe or not. So I think this leaves it open. It might just be a timeline that got pruned or something. I don't know. In the clip show, we also learned that Loki is D.B. Cooper.
Oh, I remember that. That's the that famous guy, that stole all that money and jumped out the plane.
Yep. And he is shown the death of his mother and that it's his fault. So that had an effect on him. So this point was to really get Loki into a more sympathetic point, because this Loki never did any of those things. So he never had like a redemption arc that he had in the movies. So I think they're trying to like tone him down a little bit. And we learned that the controller that they're using with his neck thing is called the Time Twister. And and the chair scene is pretty funny when he falls on his butt. B-15 interrupts to tell Mobius that they lost another unit. So now this other Loki has at least 7 of them. Loki pickpockets the Time Twister out of Mobius and disappears. Mobius says, so when they're running through the halls, he says no resetting and no pruning. So he says the two things separately. So once again, I think they're 2 different things. I don't exactly know what they do, but I'm pretty sure the pruning's the bad one and the resetting's not so bad.
I would think that resetting is just kind of like wiping your memory back.
Right. I imagine like if they reset this Loki, it would reset him to where he's stuck before he grabbed the Tesseract. So it would like still be him. It gets confusing because then he's not really the same. He's in a whatever. I think resetting's not so bad. Loki finds Casey, an analyst that works there, and threatens him with being gutted like a fish, but Casey doesn't know what a fish is, which goes to like, are these robots if he doesn't know what a fish is? And also he said he spends his whole life behind his desk. Like, it's probably a literal thing that he never leaves his desk and was, like, created into creation behind his desk. Loki wants to test.
I just kind of thought like that he was like they're in some alien planet somewhere and they don't have oceans with fish in them.
Yeah.
That was my great thought.
Mobius eats and drinks food. But we haven't seen any of the analysts. I don't know. Maybe they're different levels of sentient beings. Loki wants the Tesseract, and Casey shows him his cart of goods with lots of Infinity Stones, and also across a baseball card. I guess this is like the most expensive baseball card in existence. A medal, and it looks to me like an orange slice sticker in the background, and a square white box that looks like it's big enough to hold like a CD or like a stack of CDs. There's like a magnet or generator. It's like the round thing with all the like copper wrapped around it. And there's some kind of like metal Swiss Army knife type thing looking thing in the box. I was trying to look at everything in the drawer. I imagined it was all important and it probably isn't, but
depending on continuity, and they have another name for it now, sometimes it's just junk. Whatever they just throw in the drawer.
I'm sure it's Easter eggs for the comic books. Like, those are probably items that, you know, if you've read some random 50-year-old comic book, you would know that item. Loki realizes that the Timekeepers are stronger than the Infinity Stones. And I think this is probably when he decides that he's going to work for the TVA, because he's always looking for, like, to be the most powerful. So if they're more powerful than the Infinity Stones, then that's the power that he wants. B-15 prunes Casey's cart, trying to hit Loki. So Casey's upset about his cart being gone forever. He returns to the theater and watches Odin die, watches Odin call him his son, and fights alongside Thor and sacrifices his life for Asgard/Thor. And the tape ends with a tale that says R-ETH616. So once again, it's the 616 universe. Hunter B-15 comes for him, and he is able to slap the neckband on her and put her in a loop, which I'm sure she's not happy about. Mobius asks Loki to hunt down a dangerous variant, another Loki, and cut to 1858 Salina, Oklahoma, and a weird shovel thing from early 3rd millennium. And I looked it up. The 3rd millennium is 2001 to 3000. So that would be, early 3rd millennium would be around our time? I don't know what you would consider early. And then the guy says some jackass invented a time machine looking for oil to get rich, and they just want to prune this timeline instead of resetting it.
Is that a Back to the Future reference?
Maybe. I did look this one up. So oil was found in Salina, Oklahoma in 1859. So this is 1 year previous. So someone was trying to, we saw that the Loki variant's there. So I think they just specifically chose that to draw the attention of the TVA, because I think they put oil all over the ground to set the field on fire.
Right.
And so that would be the 8th reset thing that this Loki variant got. And that's where it is. So, what did you think about this episode?
I kind of liked it. I didn't get into all the detail that you did, but I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
The TVA, their little info thing, it was very 1950s, 1960s, that aesthetic.
Yeah, I liked it. I felt like it was very comic booky looking.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of like his responses were kind of like, okay, you know. So I really liked it. I watched it last week, so it's been a few days since I last saw it.
Yeah, you've got to watch episode 2.
Yeah, tonight.
Yep.
So yeah, I just generally liked it. Liked the episode. I just didn't get as many because I was doing other things.
Yeah. So let me tell you my thoughts then on time travel or the TVA.
Oh well, I will. I'm going to say this before you do that. I'm going to say this. I'm not a real big fan of time travel because my logical mind goes. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because if you're from the future and you come back, then you've changed it. Then how can you come back? So it's just kind of like you get into that weird loop, and it's just like I just whatever. But the way they did this, I didn't get as much. It didn't mess me up as much. But go ahead.
So I think that there are multiverses existing right now that are all on the sacred timeline. So specifically when the cartoon part and a couple other places, the sacred timeline is thicker than the offshoot lines. So I think the sacred timeline is a bunch of little lines, but they like all stay on the same path. So like, if you turned left instead of right, but you still got to your destination, then it wasn't enough of a variant for them to cut it off because you still ended up in the same place. So I think there are multiverses existing now, but they all share this one sacred line so that they all eventually end up in the same spot. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So because also I think that's the proof because they're pruning lines that have to get to a variance of like 5 away, which would mean that it's acceptable if they don't. Right? It's acceptable if they don't vary a lot. So that's why I think there's multiple ones, which means that there's a multiverse, but that everybody's happy in this multiverse. Like everybody's on the same track. So it's only when there was multiverses that converged very far apart from each other, that was when there was a war. So those are my thoughts.
Well, it'll be interesting. You said next year there's a Loki movie Doctor Strange movie coming out.
Yeah, Multiverse of Madness in March of 2022. Yeah, let me see.
I hope we're not at Gulf Wars.
Well, we'll just have to go into town that day and go watch it.
Just have to go in garb.
Yes. because they have like a list of the next set of upcoming things. So, yeah, Doctor Strange, March 25th. So we won't be at Gulf Wars. No, that's later.
We'll be back.
We'll be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And then... Oh, see, I thought they had further out. I thought I've heard things, but maybe they're just not solid yet. But until then, Black Widow's already out. Or no, it's not out. It's not comes out till July. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I don't think that's probably going to have to do with anything. The Eternals probably has a lot to do with the timeline, I would imagine, because they like to change things. Spider-Man No Way Home, I don't know anything about. So yeah. And I guess Doctor Strange was supposed to come out this year, so that's why all these shows have a lot to do with it, but it got delayed because of COVID.
Right.
So like it's a long wait until we get back to the movies, which is fine. I mean, I'm very happy with this Loki show.
Yeah, they had to figure out a way to do their work and not get everybody sick.
Yep.
So
So anyways, I was not disappointed. I did not overhype myself up. And I've already watched the second episode, which we'll talk about next week, I guess.
Well, next week I'll make sure to watch it again before we talk.
Yeah. I'm writing, I'm sure all the little details don't actually matter. I'm just writing them all down. In case they do matter. I think more they're probably just like Easter eggs for people. Like, maybe that date doesn't anything to do with anything except the fact that it's, like, somebody's birthday or something. Like, one of the writers' birthday, threw their birthday in there.
At this point in time, because there's so much information that they have now put into this through the comics and everything else, that, it'd be easy to find these. I mean, there's so much details there.
Yeah.
That it probably does have a meaning somewhere. You just have to find out what it was. Just dig around.
Yep. I'm happy with it, though. So.
Well, that's good. How many episodes are they going to do?
I think 6. Just like the other one. You got to watch WandaVision. That was a good one.
Are we still streaming?
I can stop. All right. See you next week. Burp. All right. We're not streaming anymore.